WNBA just exposed itself in the most shocking way possible, and Caitlin Clark isn't staying quiet anymore. What happened during the Indiana Fever versus LA Sparks game wasn't just bad officiating, it was something far more sinister that has players, coaches, and even retired stars calling for a full investigation into potential game fixing. The evidence is so damning that Sydney Colson literally suggested filing criminal charges, and when you see what really went down in those final 1.9 seconds, you'll understand why this could destroy the entire league's credibility forever. This isn't about one bad call or a missed foul. This is about a pattern so obvious that even casual fans are starting to connect the dots. The referee in question, whose betting history is now being scrutinized by independent investigators, made decisions so bizarre that former NBA officials are calling it the most suspicious sequence they've ever witnessed in professional basketball. And here's the part that should terrify WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. Multiple sources inside the league office have confirmed there's an internal review happening right now that could lead to the first referee suspension for match manipulation in WNBA history. Before we dive into the explosive details, make sure to hit that like button if you think the WNBA needs to clean house with these corrupt officials. Your support helps expose the truth they don't want you to see. The game started normally enough, with Indiana building a solid lead through the first quarter. Everything changed in the second quarter when Kelsey Mitchell drove hard to the basket. What happened next would become the catalyst for the biggest officiating scandal in women's basketball. Mitchell didn't just get fouled, she got absolutely mugged. The defender grabbed her arm, yanked her sideways midair, and nearly sent her crashing into the stanchion. Everyone in the arena saw it. The Fever bench erupted. Caitlin Clark, injured and sitting on the sideline, jumped up screaming at the officials to make the call, but instead of calling the obvious foul on the Sparks player, referee Aaron Ghazi pointed at Lexi Hull and hit her with a technical foul for complaining. Think about that for a second. The player who committed assault on the court walked away clean. The player who got assaulted got nothing. And the teammate who dared to speak up got punished. That's not incompetence, that's a message. And the message was clear. Indiana wasn't supposed to win this game, but that wasn't even the worst part. What happened in the final 1.9 seconds has sports betting experts calling for a federal investigation. With Indiana up by 1 point, the Sparks had the ball with less than 2 seconds on the clock. What should have been a simple inbound play turned into a 5-minute circus that defied every rule in the book. First, the shot clock mysteriously malfunctioned 3 separate times, each time giving the Sparks more time to set up their play. Then, when Kelsey Mitchell intentionally missed a free throw to run out the clock, something unprecedented happened. The referee allowed the Sparks to call a reset timeout with 0.4 seconds left. For those who don't know basketball rules, that's literally impossible. You cannot call a timeout in that situation. It's explicitly forbidden in the rulebook. Yet Aaron Ghazi not only allowed it, he overruled the other 2 officials who tried to stop him. The reaction from the Indiana bench was pure disbelief. Caitlin Clark's face said it all as she mouthed, "What the F" to the camera. Her expression a mixture of rage and bewilderment. She pointed directly at the Sparks bench and could be heard saying, "You gave them every chance to win," loud enough for the courtside microphones to pick up. What makes this even more suspicious is what happened earlier that week. 3 days before the game, unusual betting patterns emerged on overseas gambling sites. The line moved dramatically in favor of the Sparks, despite Indiana being heavy favorite. Professional gamblers noticed amounts in the hundreds of thousands being placed on not just the Sparks to win, but specifically on the game being decided by less than 3 points. When you combine that with what happened on the court, the picture becomes terrifyingly clear. Sydney Colson, watching from home while recovering from her torn ACL, had seen enough. Her tweet wasn't just angry, it was calculated to expose what everyone in the league already knows, but nobody dares to say publicly. At a certain point in the league's existence, I'm gonna need Kelsey Mitchell to get the same whistle as other stars. The way she gets assaulted is insane, actually, and I've considered roping my sister in to have her office pursue charges. That last part about pursuing charges wasn't a joke. Colson's sister works in the district attorney's office in Phoenix, and according to sources close to the situation, she's already begun collecting video evidence of the most egregious non-calls against Indiana players this season. We're talking about a potential criminal investigation into sports corruption, something that could bring down not just referees, but potentially league officials who have been turning a blind eye to this problem. Caitlin Clark's response to Coulson's tweet was brilliant in its simplicity. "Careful, you're going to get fined," she wrote, dripping with sarcasm. Because Clark knows firsthand how the WNBA operate. Criticize the referees and you pay. Literally, she's already been fined twice this season for gestures deemed disrespectful to game officials, which is league speak for pointing out obvious corruption. The fining system itself is part of the scandal. Sophie Cunningham, who joined Indiana this season, has been fined 3 times already for criticizing officials. Her first fine of $500 came for lip syncing to a TikTok that called referees stupid and useless. Her second fine of $1,500 was for saying on her podcast that certain players get preferential treatment. And her third fine, amount undisclosed but rumored to be over $3,000, came after she posted statistical evidence showing that Indiana opponents average 12 fewer foul calls per game than when they play other teams. Let that sink in. When teams play Indiana, they commit 12 fewer fouls according to the referee. Either Indiana has developed a magical force field that prevents contact, or something much darker is happening. The statistical impossibility of this pattern has caught the attention of MIT professors who specialize in probability analysis. Their preliminary findings suggest the likelihood of this happening naturally is less than 0.001%. But here's where it gets even more interesting. League sources have revealed that Kathy Engelbert held an emergency meeting with the referees union just 48 hours after the Sparks game. The meeting, described by one insider as explosive, reportedly involved Engelbert demanding answers about the betting patterns and threatening to bring in external investigators. The referees union responded by threatening to strike during the playoffs, which would essentially destroy the WNBA's most important revenue period. The players aren't backing down either. Lexi Hull, who received that controversial technical foul, went on a podcast the next day and dropped bombshell. She revealed that before the game, she overheard one referee telling another, "Keep it close," during warm-up. When pressed for more details, Hull said she's been advised by lawyers not to say anything else publicly, but that she's fully cooperating with what she called an ongoing investigation. That investigation, according to multiple sources, involves not just the league office, but potentially the FBI's sports corruption unit. The same unit that exposed the Tim Donaghy scandal in the NBA is reportedly looking into whether WNBA games have been manipulated for gambling purposes. The focus isn't just on that one game, but on a pattern spanning the entire season where Indiana, despite being one of the best teams statistically, has faced inexplicably one-sided officiating in close games. The evidence is overwhelming when you look at the numbers. Indiana leads the league in drives to the basket, but ranks dead last in free throw attempts. Caitlin Clark, who gets hit more than any guard in the league according to tracking data, averages fewer free throws per game than players who primarily shoot jump shots. Kelsey Mitchell has been knocked to the floor 17 times this season without a single flagrant foul being called. Meanwhile, when Indiana's opponents drive to the basket, they get calls at a rate 37% higher than league average. Former NBA referee Steve Javi, speaking anonymously to protect his relationships in the officiating community, said what he witnessed in the Sparks game was the most blatant example of biased officiating he's seen in 40 years of basketball. He pointed specifically to the final sequence where the referee appeared to be actively trying to give the Sparks additional opportunities to score, violating multiple rules in the process. The league's response has been predictably pathetic. Instead of addressing the corruption allegations, they've doubled down on fining players who speak out. Lynn Dunn, Indiana's general manager, publicly stated she would pay any fines her players receive for calling out bad officiating. The league responded by threatening to fine her for offering to pay fines, which is apparently also against the rules. The irony of fining someone for offering to pay fines while ignoring actual game manipulation isn't lost on anyone. What makes this situation even more explosive is the timing. The WNBA is in the middle of negotiating a new media rights deal worth potentially hundreds of millions of dollars. The last thing they need is a corruption scandal that could tank their credibility with broadcasters. Yet instead of cleaning house, they're trying to silence the very players who are bringing in record viewership numbers. Caitlin Clark alone is responsible for a 400% increase in Fever attendance and a 200% increase in television rating. She's the golden goose of women's basketball, the player who finally made the WNBA must-watch television. And how does the league repay her? By allowing referees to rig games against her team while threatening her with fines if she she complains about it. Players have had enough. There's talk of a coordinated protest where entire teams might refuse to take the court until the officiating issue is addressed. The Indiana Fever players are reportedly leading this effort, with support from several other teams who have also been victims of questionable calls this season. One player, speaking on condition of anonymity, said, "We're not asking for special treatment, we're asking for fair treatment, and if the league won't give us that, we'll take matters into our own hands." That could mean anything from organized protests to players wearing shirts calling out specific referees to potentially filing a lawsuit against the league for failing to ensure fair competition. The legal precedent exists from other sports where athletes successfully sued leagues for corruption that affected their earning potential. With the amount of money now involved in women's basketball through endorsements and bonuses tied to team performance, players have real financial damages they could claim. A smoking gun might have already been found. A leaked internal email from the Referees Association shows officials discussing game management strategies specifically for nationally televised games. The email, authenticated by cybersecurity experts, includes phrases like "keep it competitive for rating" and "extend close games when possible." If this email is what it appears to be, it's proof that referees are being instructed to manipulate games for entertainment purposes, rather than calling them fairly. This is bigger than just bad calls or missed fouls. This is about the integrity of the entire sport. When referees can openly rig games without consequences, when players are fined for pointing out corruption, when statistical impossibilities are dismissed as coincidence, you don't have a professional sports league anymore. You have sports entertainment, scripted outcomes designed to maximize drama rather than determine the best team. The question now is whether the WNBA will act before it's too late. The FBI investigation, if it's really happening, could result in criminal charges. The players' potential boycott could destroy the playoffs. The media rights negotiation could collapse if broadcasters lose confidence in the product's legitimacy. Kathy Engelbert is sitting on a ticking time bomb, and every day she delays taking action brings the league closer to complete implosion. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark and Sydney Colson have become the unofficial leaders of a player revolution. They're not backing down, not accepting fines as the cost of doing business, not staying quiet while their sport is corrupted from within. Clark's social media following has grown by 2 million since she started calling out the referees, showing that fans are firmly on the players' side in this battle. The final insult came when the league announced that Aaron Ghazi, the referee at the center of the Sparks controversy, would be officiating a crucial Indiana playoff game. The decision was so tone-deaf, so obviously provocative, that even neutral observers are calling it intentional antagonism. It's as if the league is daring the players to revolt, testing how far they can push before everything breaks. What happens next could define the future of women's professional basketball. Either the WNBA cleans up its act, fires corrupt officials, and implements real oversight, or it continues down this path toward irrelevance. Because make no mistake, if fans believe games are rigged, they'll stop watching. If players believe they can't get fair treatment, they'll stop playing. And if sponsors believe their brands are associated with corruption, they'll stop paying. This is the WNBA's moment of truth, and right now they're failing spectacularly. The question isn't whether there's corruption anymore. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is whether anyone in power has the courage to do something about it before it's too late. If you think it's time for the WNBA to fire these corrupt referees and investigate the betting scandal, smash that subscribe button and leave a comment below. Your voice matters in this fight for fairness, and together we can expose the truth they're desperately trying to hide.